So, hello and namaste ji and namaste and hello to everyone else who have been joining us. This is our very first and free of charge webinar with Dr. Shantanu Mishra and myself, Manuela Haddad Johnson. So I'm very pleased to have Shantanu on board, and I'm very honored that he is making the time to introduce his view on Ayurveda and nutrition to us today. I want to introduce him, and because he is such a great scholar, I have to read what he has been doing so far. So he is an Ayurveda doctor and something I have absolutely no expertise in. He's a medical astrologer and researcher with a strong academic background and clinical interest in integrative Ayurveda, which is very, very important. His work focuses on holistic health, mind-body healing, and practical application of classical Ayurveda principles in modern lifestyles, which is, I think, why you all have been joining this channel. So he's also actively involved in academic writing, teaching, and wellness education, while still having this classical Ayurvedic doctor training background, which is very, very important. And I'd like to just give a little more words to that because the people we normally meet in the West and Western practitioners are Western practitioners and hardly are doctors. Means the education time plus the time to work under supervision is extremely short. And now here with Dr. Shantanu, we have somebody with a long year expertise and studies. So,
So, namaste, Manuela, and everyone. Thank you so much for having me on this platform and wonderful introduction that you made. And yes, I'm looking towards express my knowledge, my experience about Ayurveda, about the food habits. So, yes, thank you so much, Manuela, for having me for the invitation.
okay. So today we are having some prepared questions that people have been submitting beforehand, which I will ask. And then later, we have time probably that some of the people who have joined are able to ask their own questions. So one thing is now that you can see I'm shivering here, it's very cold in Germany. And so one of the common questions about Ayurveda is, how can I possibly adapt Ayurvedic principles to a climate that is very, very different to Central India? Because that's what most people assume that is Ayurveda what's about. And how can we adjust our food habits, lifestyle habits to these long, long hours of darkness? When I'm in India, it gets daylight by 6 and the daylight's gone by 6. So that's just like a rule. But when I'm living here in Berlin, so sometimes the daylight arises at 3 p.m. and vanishes at 4 p.m. So how can I possibly adjust my food and lifestyle choices to winter?
So, Manuela, it's a very good question that you asked. So, what happens in winter, if you talk about the Ayurvedic context, that in the winters, what happens usually, the Kapha dosha and Vata dosha, especially the Vata dosha predominance is very high. And usually we are much prone to have diseases or maybe health issues pertaining with the Vata doshas. So that is why it is highly recommended to cover your body. That's why we're not exposed, especially to the soul part, because this is the most contact part with the earth. So that is why it has been asked to go for the Pada Bhyanga for the pacification of the Vata doshas. And if you talk about the food habits, so usually to pacify the Vata doshas and the Kapha doshas, usually it has been recommended to have the food products having the sweet nature, that is the sweet guna, amla guna,
Problem.
more. Sorry?
Yeah, people love sweets. Yes.
Yes. So because this phase we having very high digestive strength. So that is why we can consume food items because our digestive strength is very high. And that is why these sweet items has been recommended, not only in India, but also I guess in the Europe section as well. People been recommended to have the sweet items more. in order to pacify the Vata doshas and the Kapha. And that is why, let's first say if we talk about India, that the most important fruit we are consuming in the winters is the guava. So if we talk about guava, usually what does guava do is like it is pacifying the kapha doshas. It is fibrous. It is consuming the Agni, high digestive Agni, and that is why it becomes very much important. If we
So,
talk about
sorry, interrupting. So that means that the winter vegetables that we are having, like potatoes, which is a nightshade, I'm not so fond of it, but potatoes, cabbage, all kind of root vegetables are basically a good staple because
yes,
one thing, it is local and it is sweet in nature.
yes, yes. I was about to mention this thing as well. So what we have to do, we should not consume the imported food items. It's just like we have to figure out the let us say the fruits, the vegetable which is been grown in our locality, in our area, instead of importing the vegetable. Let us say that's why I give an example of guava and the mango. So let us say the winter, the guava is recommended to have, but instead of guava, you are importing the mangoes and you are having the mangoes in the winter because if you talk about the mango, its function is during the summer because in summer we have a depletion of dhatus and the vata is very high. So that has been recommended to have in those seasons instead of winter, and that's what we are doing. What we are doing, we are just having food item which is just opposite quality in that season. So people are consuming food items which is been recommended to have in the summers instead of winter. And that is very much problematic because it will cause the accumulation of more kapha, more vata in the body. And subsequently, you will have maybe related with upper respiratory tract disorders or maybe major health issues pertaining with the vata and the kapha doshas. So that is why we have to manage it. And also, if you talk about the vihara concept, that what we can do in the winters, we can go for the abhyanga with this with the til tela is excellent therapy that what we can do individually. We can go for the external application of tila tela, or maybe we can consume the tila tela. We can have the jaggery in this season is very good recommended. Maybe honey we can take in this season. So these are the products that we can consume in the winters.
Good, thank you very much. So, how would an Ayurvedic diet then look like in winter and in summer for people in the northern countries? Means starting with what would be a compulsory breakfast, lunch, and dinner option. Because here in the West, we are very much concerned that a lot of people actually can't digest pulses. And also, I want to ask you about this modern trend. And I have to say, it's kind of a modern trend to start the whole year with some kind of porridge. So, what is your idea when you look at our yearly routine that we now have about 10 degrees minus, and summer we go up to 35 degrees? So, what could be the changes in the breakfast? What is enough protein, if we could break it down? What is enough carbs, and what is enough fat? And can you just introduce us to a breakfast, lunch, and dinner routine that is seasonal? What would be the requirements for season if we start winter, spring, summer, autumn? Because these are our seasons. These are not Indian seasons necessarily, because we consider four seasons.
Yes, yes. It's a very long question, but I will try to give the answer in the
It was
very,
repetitive.
let us say, yes, yes, no issue. So, if you talk about, let us say, Europe section, and usually, as you mentioned, that most of the time, the temperature varies, around most of the time, let us say, winters only. So, usually, it is considered, if you talk about as per the Acharya Charak, he stated that Desha, so the Europe section, especially who are having much more winter time, it will be regarded as the Anupadesha. So if you can check also in the Matra Satiki Adhyaya of Charak Samhita, there's a chapter where Acharya Charak has stated about the dietary habits, Ahar, Vihar, what we can do in the if we are having the Anupadesha. So usually in the Anupadesha, the food item that's been recommended is, let's for say, for example, maybe if you are having the uh let's for say you are taking the meats also, chickens also, it needs to be boiled. It needs to be boiled. Instead of like let's for say I've seen people are having let's for say lots of spices there. It's not been recommended. In the Anupadesha, it's not been recommended. Your main course food should be much more on the boiled. I've seen people taking the raw vegetables, things like that. It's been not recommended. So we have to deal with the Anupadesha concept, especially in the European section. And your another question was?
Just continue, and maybe you can develop now for the 4 seasons um, a breakfast, and after that we come to lunch and dinner. So 4 different breakfast types for the 4 seasons that we are facing.
Okay, okay, okay. So if you talk about the diet habits, so usually what needs to be there in the Anupadesha, you should consume your maximum meal. Let for say if you are let for say if you are non-veg based, or if you are veg based, so what you can take the maximum meal. Let for say the boiled chickens or the muttons, whatever you want, but not should not put much more spices early in the breakfast. So the breakfast should be very much heavy, very much heavy. Maybe the seasonal fruits that you can take, grow in the nearby areas. Then, if you talk about the afternoon phase, that is the lunch, it needs to be almost half than the your breakfast, and you can take some rices. Maybe if, as you mentioned, the pulses are been not easily been digestible in those areas. Obviously, in the Anupdesha, people are having prone to indigestion issues more. So that is why pulses been not recommended. What you can do, you can take some groundnuts, maybe rices that you can have instead of chapatis or bread. I've seen people having much more bread based, so it should not be there. Uh, you can take some seasonal fruits in the afternoon, and the dinner it should be before the sunset. So this needs to be a concept if you talk about people living in the Anupadesha, and you can vary the food as per the season. Let for say the vegetables or maybe the fruits been sown in the seasonal fruits, like let for say in the summer if you are having the mangoes or maybe some other fruits that you can consume in the summer. Similarly with the winter. So usually it should be as per the seasonal based. You should promote the seasonal food instead of, let for say, you are having just opposite quality of food in the different seasons. So that is how it needs to be there.
So that's interesting. So instead of now giving recipes that people normally ask me to give them, so what shall I eat for breakfast? And then they eat it the whole year. You're now emphasizing just look at what is available on the market as a local produce and avoid imported produces, which is in this area, it's really hard. Yeah. And if you go further north, it gets less variety. But that's also super interesting that you're then emphasizing instead of going crazy and getting more imported food, that you also emphasize on having maybe a meat dish, yeah, which is, I have to say, quite unpopular here in Berlin, particularly with the influence of yoga, that people consider Ayurveda more as a vegetarian or vegan option. So therefore, I would just not even want to go into the discussion about vegetarianism and veganism for now. This would be for another show. But that we now stay with the assumption we have to change seasonal and, of course, individually, but we should look on everything that is available on our local markets and not go to the Indian shops. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
So what
Absolutely,
about
absolutely.
spices? Because we have a lot of spices that are now migrating into our food. And you mentioned that. You mentioned spices that are spicy. And we have all these spices that migrate into our food as Ayurvedic concepts like haldi, turmeric, coriander, dhania, jeera, what is that in English? I don't know. Who cares? Um, like a garam masala mix. And so what happened in the last years, we were moving away from food that we could identify, like we could say, oh, that's a potato and that's a spinach, to food that looks brown, looks kind of pre-digested. So, but we have not been exposed to this kind of spices in our childhood mostly. So, what do you think is a good recommendation for Western people when they use spices? Should we more go for local spices like thyme, rosemary? Um, Pepper definitely is not a local spice, but it's something that is always in our diet since centuries. Or should we just use more of Indian spices because they all considered to increase Agni?
So, Ayurveda is not much more based on using of spices. First of all, the thing is that you have to identify the place where you are living.
Yes.
You have to check your prakriti. You have to check your prakriti.
Yeah.
Whatever I am saying is not applicable to everyone.
Yes.
You have to check whether what's your digestive strength. Maybe for someone who can consume more spices is fine for particular individual, but at the same time another person who is consuming just maybe 5 grams or 10 grams daily, is he can't able to digest it, he's getting diarrheas. So you have to check whatever food items you're consuming, let's for say by the name of Indian spices, or whatever you are consuming, first of all, you have to check your prakriti, you have to check your digestive strength, and the desha and the kala. That means the place, let's for say the Germany place is like is the Anup desha. So you have to check whether, and especially the time, that means the season you have to check whether it's winter season, shall can we have in the winter or maybe in the summer. So you have to check all the parameters and then you can apply. And spices, let's for say if you talk about spices, people are using Indian spices is not highly recommendable there, because the body is not meant to have those garam masalas, and people are consuming by the name of yoga, by the name of so many things. It is not well suited.
While
That
you,
is why
I'm going to,
that is why
hmm?
that
Sorry.
is why you should promote the indigenous spices. Those are available. Let's just talk about maybe 200 years back. Obviously, during that phase, there was no involvement of Indian spices, but still people were surviving and they were very much healthy. So you have to think like that. Instead of importing masalas, spices from India and having, I'm not saying that you should not consume, but you have to figure out your own Agni, whether you are able to digest it properly or not. Otherwise it will lead to have accumulation of maybe the ama or maybe some depletions as well. So you have to figure out your own body.
Wow, that's a statement. So one thing just came to my mind, actually two, but one thing I want to do first. It has become super popular to get something which is here called a golden milk. I don't know if you came across that. I just remember from my times in Nadia, the Gujarat with Professor Guptaji, that we got milk with Chyawanprash at 4 in the morning, which is my favorite time to consume. Not. And now suddenly I saw people in the organic food shops buying a tin with turmeric and milk powder and sugars, and then having this as a night drink, or sometimes just putting half a teaspoon of turmeric into a glass of milk and having this as a golden milk, even foamed, not properly cooked. So I'd like to ask you for your opinion and if you ever really came across that turmeric milk somewhere in India. I know saffron is something that we also use to invigorate strength, but the idea of turmeric and milk, I just realized I had that when I had a cold coming up or something, but not as a regular drink. But just imagine the amount of turmeric, which is about half a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon for 1 cup of milk. Do you came across that? And what would be the benefit from it? And what would be the counter activity from it if you use that daily?
Yes, yes. So, no, as I already mentioned, let's say you talk about the golden milk. Yes, I have heard about it. And I know India has been practiced. People are practicing it, having consuming maybe daily on the daily basis. But you have to check whether that is suitable to your body or not, as per your digestive strength. Let's say somebody is lactose intolerant. So obviously you can't take somebody who's not like can't have the turmeric, maybe some having allergy with the turmeric. You have to figure out having chamanprash. So, that totally depends upon the prakriti. Here the concept comes. You have to check. You can't force everyone or maybe to have milk and chavanprash, golden milk every day. That has been not recommended. This is not the Ayurveda.
Yes.
Ayurveda is individually specific. Let's say you are my patient, so obviously I have to check your prakriti, I have to check your Agni strength, I have to take proper history with about you, and then I will select some medicines or maybe the formulations whether you should consume the turmeric milk or not.
Yes.
But it is not a thumb rule that okay, having maybe let's say turmeric milk every day that will help you to boost your immunity. Yes, it boosts the immunity, but you have to check. You
Yeah.
have to check whether it is very specific. It's very specific. And what benefits of turmeric milk or maybe the golden milk? Yes, turmeric is an anti-inflammatory drug, and in India because there's a species of that turmeric and which is having an anti-carcinoma property as well. So that is why we are using in India and the vegetable also we are having the haldi, turmeric. So it is having a fixed proportions.
So this is very important what you're saying, that the proportion and that individual. So in Western allergy medicine, we say normally like 100 ml of milk a day is even suitable or recommended for people with lactose intolerance because it helps you not to lose the final ability. And also that we say what you mentioned, lactose intolerance is not an allergy, basically. It is like weak Agni, and we can just change that by lifestyle and food. There is something when we come to the milk. Now, another alteration that I see here very often, and it's very difficult to deal with when we're counseling, and that's the use of what people say plant milk. And normally, Professor Gupta ji is going completely ballistic and say there's nothing like plant milk. And he always emphasizes that milk is cow's milk or goat's milk. So, what is your personal view on the consumption of oat milk, um, almond milk, and all these other plant-based white liquids, if they come into Ayurvedic medical use, like for instance with ashwagandha or brahmi for a certain application, or for daily nutrition, is that recommended or does it come with problems?
No, individuals who can't consume, let's say if you talk about India and the major countries, someone who can't consume the cow's milk, obviously they are shifted towards the almond milk to different types of milk. So yes, they can consume, but you have to check whether it has been suited to your body or not. So again, it is very individually specific. You
Very
have to check whether
good.
it is been suited to your body or not. In let's say I mentioned everyone have almond milk every day, and obviously let's say somebody who started taking and is having diarrhea issue, maybe some health issues. So you have to check whether it has been suited to your body or not. And if it is working, obviously almond is very very good for the health, very good to balance the ojas. Yes, it's been recommended, but you have to check your own body strength whether you are able to digest it properly or not.
I think I hear a lot of disappointment by people who are listening to the show now by understanding, oops, there is not one cure for everything, but I probably have to consult a specialist to understand what are my specific needs. So, continuing now with a little bit of broader view on Ayurveda before we can have maybe a direct question and answer if people want to. Otherwise, I continue with the questions I have. So, could you explain to the listeners the differences between Ayurveda which already you explored quite a lot, but maybe emphasize more even, and Indian cookery and the changes through colonialism, food crops, and what we see now here as Ayurveda.
So, a very good question that you mentioned, especially in the West, people are very much confused about, let's say, by the name of Indian foods with Ayurveda, Indian spices with Ayurveda. It's completely different. It's completely different. Ayurveda is based on the Prakriti, Ayurveda based on Agni, Ayurveda is based on Bala, Kala, Desha, and the Indian food of let's say is totally different. Its making is different. Once somebody says that the food is the medicine, if you talk about Ayurveda,
Yeah.
but what is happening in India, if you talk about the colonial rule, people are not practicing the original food habits. It's been adulterated completely. The crops that used to be sown here back days before the colonial rule, people are not following it properly. What they are doing, for example, in the earlier practices in India, people were having ghee, vanaspati ghee. But nowadays, what people are having, they are having refined oils, they are having
Yes.
vegetable oils,
Yeah.
and what and it shifted. It shifted, and nowadays people are having much more prone to diabetes, hypertension.
Yeah.
Similarly, with other crops as well. If you talk about chapatis, earlier time, people are having food. The chapatis made up of ragi, made up of jwar, bajra. But nowadays, after the colonial rule, people start consuming the wheat flour much more in the high intensity. Let's say maida.
Yeah.
You see people are having maida, maybe the chapatis or the puris early in the morning. The breakfast
Yeah.
is very, very dangerous. And if you talk about similarly with introduction of tea and the coffees in India, people earlier time nobody used to have coffees and the tea in India, but nowadays it became a routine. People are taking the tea and the coffee early in the morning in the empty stomach. And what was Ayurveda? Ayurveda was to have lukewarm water after you wake up in the empty stomach. And now what people are having? They are just having coffees and tea. And what will cause it? It will cause the indigestion, accumulation of ama. So Ayurveda cuisine, the Indian cuisine and Ayurveda is totally different. It's totally different.
So what you're saying is also the care of ourselves, of our bodies, as a preposition before we start even taking medicine. And if we understand that often what looks right on the surface has to be inquired deeper by understanding our specific needs, options, chances, challenges, and what we shouldn't do. So um, when we have a what else can I ask? So there's something also that people understand when they go into Ayurveda that I'm taking things away from them, that I'm the mean person and I'm not allowing certain stuff. And I'm saying that actually, I don't have any interest to sabotage them. They're self-sabotaging by continuing these kind of things. And so how could you just emphasize on Ayurvedic nutrition not as a stubborn regimen for the person, which sounds a little bit lifeless and joyless, but going back into the purpose of Ayurveda, because you also said in your bio that you're a wellness interested person. So, how can we emphasize the real goal of Ayurveda, which is not just digestion, but how could you put that in a nutshell? What is Ayurveda for you? What benefits are coming out of it besides just having a good digestion? like happiness, joy, spirituality. What is it for you that Ayurveda depicts?
Look, if you see the goal of Ayurveda, it is the, or maybe the aim of Ayurveda is the Swasthasya Swastharakshanam Aturasya Vikar Prashmanam Cha. So what does it mean? It means that, you know, the aim of Ayurveda is to protect the life of an individual. And let for someone is disease, it needs to be properly managed. So this is the Ayurveda. This is the Ayurveda. We talk about hitayu, hitaitam sukham dukham ayutasya hitaitam. Manam cha yatroktam sauchati Ayurveda. So this is the Ayurveda. So by having a proper diet, by proper management, we can enjoy our life. It is not about living, it is about enjoying your own life. And once you are healthy, you are properly fit, you can enjoy it properly. So this is the concept of Ayurveda, to be much more closer to the nature. In
Yes.
the, let us say the very simple term, I just want to make you understand in the very simple terms, what is Ayurveda? For someone who doesn't have that much knowledge about Ayurveda, Ayurveda is what is going much more closer to the nature, to the natural practices. Very
So
simple.
So what I like to just put more in a globalizing context is the moment we stop eating processed food, we are also healing the planet because every produce of processed food has a global impact by producing waste and plastics that are rotting in the soil, and the soil is the base of our nutrition. And if we disturb the microbiome of the soil, we are also disturbing the microbiome in our system. So if we disturb the Agni of the earth, we are disturbing our own Agni. If we disturb the oceans by overfishing, by not understanding what is sustainability, by doing wrong food choices like consuming omega oil capsules, which disturbs the oceans on a massive scale, then we are losing the point of connection within every aspect of nature. And I think this is something that people then should consider when we sit with them, that it's not only about them and their own happiness by having a donut, which gives short-term satisfaction, but has a long-term impact even on the planet, so that we can heal more through connection, which is a principle of Ayurveda, by understanding the seasonal changes, by understanding individual needs, and by understanding global connections.
Yes,
So
definitely, definitely,
shall we ask if there are some private questions from the listeners? Is there anyone who wants to ask something?
definitely, definitely. We can take some.
So I give that, I open the chat if somebody wants to ask a question.
I would like to ask a question. Hello, thank you for your talk. I'm a bit overwhelmed, a lot of information. So my problem is constipation, and I do the drinking with warm water, but I'm also a porridge eater in the morning. And I cook an apple, for example, and then I put like buckwheat inside and things like this. And actually, I eat good food. I use a lot of ghee also, but my constipation still is going on, and I'm a bit frustrated now.
Okay. Hello, Matt. How should I call you? Petra?
Sorry?
How should I call her? Merita, Merita,
Pitta.
Marita.
Merita. So, Merita, as you mentioned that you are suffering with some chronic constipations, and you are following all the diets as you mentioned. So, and as well as any another issue, do you have any another issue with the constipation?
Yes, I have a neurological disease.
Okay, 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 okay. And okay, I got it, your question. So, if you talk about the constipation, so in Ayurvedic context, it's been related with Vibandha. Vibandha. And Viband, as you are looking, we are very old age. So obviously the Vatic dosha is which is very much high in the body, because Vata dosha is much more predominantly high in the older people. And you are having the constipation, that is because of the apana vayu, that is the dushti of the apana vayu, which causing the motion of the stool downward. So as far as Ayurveda is concerned, you are already taking the warm water, lukewarm water, as you mentioned. The food you are, maybe what you can do, you can have some food, some laxatives, some Ayurvedic laxatives together. Maybe let's say you can have the triphala, maybe avipattikar. There is a powder. Maybe you can consume it. The first thing is the cleansing of the ama dosha, or maybe the nitya virichan, maybe mild purgative measures you can apply with the Ayurveda. So that is what you and as you mentioned that you have some neurological disorders as well. So we have to check it whether and about your history. Then we can comment it patterly. But I guess you can start with the food items who are having the laxity properties. Similarly, we can apply the trifle or maybe avipattikar is very good. The virechana, maybe the mild purgative measures you can apply, and that is will be very much good in the chronic constipation issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? We have another 10 minutes about to go. Come on.
I have another question. Do you recommend any treatment at home?
Okay, for you,
Yes, like oil treatment.
okay. It's very simple. It's very simple. As been mentioned, it's been winter is going on, so you have to select the food items or the maybe the vegetables or the fruits which are having laxity properties. I don't have much idea about the Germany, the local foods been available there, but I guess you can check. Adding to it, uh, what you can do is application of the triphala. Triphala, you know the triphala?
I think it's familiar to me. Yeah.
Yes, you can have triphala or the avipattikar is very good. Is having the mild laxity property, and what it will do, it will do the uh, vata anulomita. That means it will cause the purification of the apana vayu dosha, which is giving you the constipation or the vibandha.
All right.
So it's
Thank you.
very very simple that you can follow it. And maybe some asanas are also there with the yoga, है ना? Okay, Kapal Bhati you can do, maybe Anulom Vilom you can do for the movement of the Vata dosha, or the Pavan Mukta Asan has been recommended. You can check on the YouTube about the Pavan Mukta Asana. It's very good to that you can practice for the constipation issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Or shall I ask one more question?
Yes, hello. This is Mirko. I have a question. Thank you for your speech. I have a question because I grew up, especially completely opposite what you said. I had a very small breakfast, kind of smaller lunch, and then at night always a big dinner, always warm and a lot of food. And I have a question. I feel especially hungry around 9 or 10. And I just wanted to know what I can do in this situation. What is a good food to have to not disturb the sleep? Thank you.
Okay. So how should I call him? Is Melanie? Melanie?
No, it's
I'm
Mirko.
correct?
It's the husband of Melanie. Mirko.
Michael.
Yeah, Michael. You can call me Michael.
Okay. So Michael, the habit that you are following is quite similar to what people are following in India. The same
Yeah.
thing. It's
Yeah.
been not recommended in the Ayurvedic context. It's not the healthy sign. You should consume the heaviest meal in the morning,
Yeah.
and maybe if you can skip the lunch, there is no issue. But you can take the evening, or maybe if you talk about Ayurvedic context, you should stop consuming the food before the sunset.
Yeah.
And if you just follow it, maybe for a couple of weeks, definitely you will see some changes. And because your hungerness is because you have accumulation of ama
Hmm.
dosha in the body. That is why still you are, let's say you consume the food and you start feeling hungry at the next moment.
Mm.
So this is what happens when we are having the ama dosha accumulation in the body. So
Hmm.
what you can do for this, you can have the trikatu churana or trikatu powder, or maybe the triphala, to balance the ama dosha.
Hmm.
Uh, and you can follow it the diet properly. That means having the heaviest meal in the morning, to and stop consuming the food before the sunset. That is the ideal practice to be
Okay.
healthy.
Yeah. Okay, I tried it. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very, very much, everyone, and particular thank you to Shantanu. And Shantanu had asked me if he can close the session with a mantra. So I would like to invite you to do that. Is that now perfect timing for you?
Yes. So we'll recite the Dhanvantri mantra. So Dhanvantri he's the god of medicines, and definitely this mantra he will bless all of us to have healthy life. So ओम नमो भगवते महासुदर्शनाय वासुदेवाय धन्वंतराय अमृत कलश हस्ताय सर्वभय विनाशाय सर्वरोग निवारणाय त्रिलोकपताय त्रिलोकनाथाय श्री विष्णु स्वरूपाय श्री धन्वंतरि स्वरूपाय श्री 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 औषध चक्राय नारायणाय नमः.
Okay, so thank you very much for everyone
Thank you.
joining.
Thank you, everyone.
We're going to share this on YouTube, and I think Shantanu will also share something on Instagram. You can follow us for more information. And if you want us to continue and also have bigger webinars where we then go into more specific teachings, for instance, for certain diseases like neurological disorders, digestive disorders, eating disorders, mental disorders, and so on, in the combination also with yoga therapy, you're most welcome to submit your support and questions, and then we will meet again and let you all know. Yeah, is that okay with you? So thank you so very much, and I'm wishing
Thank you.
everyone a beautiful Sunday. Thank you again, Shantanu. That
Thank you
speaks.
so much, everyone.
Okay.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
Bye.
Thank you.